Yeah, g'day. Well, in the other videos, we've looked at a whole lot of hydrocarbons, and they've all been straight-chained ones. So look at this. That's not a straight chain. If you got that in an exam without any preparation, you'd feel lower than a snake's armpit. So let's look at prepping you for that sort of thing and see what you can do to answer the questions, name these compounds, and set yourself on the path to greatness. So let's have a look at this and what it's got attached to it. Yeah, sure, it's got a straight chain hydrocarbon there, but look, there's another group attached to it, and there's another weird group attached to it, and they're all hydrocarbon groups. And what we call those little fellas is alkyl groups. Or, if you come from other parts of the world, you might call them alkyl groups. How you say it, it's up to you, not for me to judge. So the simplest of these is, of course, this sort of little fella here. And that little fella there, it's got one carbon, so just like with the alkane naming, you call it a meth, but this time it's a methyl group or a methyl group, because it's not just on its own being CH4 like methane is, it's now attached to something else. And what that thing is varies, and we just call it R, because there's no R in the periodic table, so there's no chance of us mixing it up with anything else. Just call it R, and it's a sort of general thing. So here we are with our methyl group. Now it comes as no surprise to find out what this little fella's called. And this one, it's got two carbons. So there's the R it's attached to. The R represents all the rest of the molecule, and you recognise that as an eth, and it's an ethyl group or ethyl group. Now, what do you think you'll call this one? Here it is. Identify this one immediately because of its 3 carbon atoms in a straight chain with no double or triple bonds, only singles. So it's a saturated alkyl group. And, yep, 3 carbons, it's a propyl group. Now, there's just one more thing I'd like to introduce you to before we go on to naming this compound and a few other compounds. And that will hint at the great complexity of this kind of hydrocarbon naming. Just going to duck around to the other side of the board. Easy, easy. Alright, here's another kind of alkyl group, and here it is. Oh, so it's got 3 carbons in it, but they're branched. So what you see here is the carbons have all got to have, well, we'll attach it to its parent molecule here, and we see that every carbon has to make its 4 bonds. So we just do these to show that there's a carbon attached to each of those. And what we call this one, 1, 2, 3. So yep, it's propyl, but it's an isomer of this little fella here. And because it's an isomer of that, we call it isopropyl. Now, I won't be giving you too many examples of these ones. We'll be looking at those ones mostly. So we'll just scrub that one off. But I just want you to see that there's a whole set of layers of complexity regarding the naming of these compounds that we haven't really hinted at yet. So let's just get rid of these. You've just got to remember methyl or methyl, 1, ethyl, and propyl. And you'd go on, you'd go to a butyl group if it had 4 carbons, and a pentyl group if it had 5, and a dodecyl group if it had 12 on it. But I haven't got enough room on the board to do those, so we're going to start with that. Now what do you think we're going to name that? Well, according to IPAC nomenclature, which is the internationally recognised way of naming these little fellas, we've got to look firstly at the longest carbon chain and then base the rest of the molecule's naming from that. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's heptane. Now the more sharp-minded of you might have noticed we could also go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's true. It doesn't make any difference. So we'll do that last one. So 1, 2, 3. On board already. So there we are. What are we going to call this little fella? What are we going to call it? 7 carbons in a row, single bonds only, no double triple bonds. It's an alkane, so it's pentane. No, it's not pentane. I heard you wrongly there. It's going to be heptane. But I hear you cry. It's actually got 7, 8, 9, 10 carbon atoms with only single bonds. So why are we stupid enough to call it heptane when it's clearly decane? Well, what we do is we simply go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the longest road we can go in a straight line, well, in a chain at least, and then we call the others functional groups, alkyl groups, and we name it after that. So let's have a look. Attached to 1, 2, 3, there's a methyl group. So not surprisingly, we're going to call that 3-methyl. And maybe I could write that as if I hadn't been doing some very silly things just before making this video. But we haven't finished yet. We've got a, oh, there it is, an ethyl group there. What are we going to do with that? Well, it's attached to the 5th, and it's an ethyl, and it's 3-methyl, 5-ethyl, heptane. Had to keep checking there, because you called it pentane before. You tried to fool me, didn't you? Now let's have a look at how we draw that if we were using the wiggly line model, because the wiggly line model is one of these that you'll be finding on quite a lot of exams and tests and horrible things like that that we invent simply to persecute you poor students. So let's have a look how we do that. I'm going to go over here to do that. Because, oh, stop it. And here we go. He's settled down a bit now, the little fella. So let's have a look. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I've done it like this, even though I chose the bent chain. I've just put them in a line like this for simplicity's sake, because that's what this model is all about, simplicity. And so, let's name our carbon atoms. And there's our heptane, our 7 chain of single bonded carbon atoms. And so now we get that one, and it simply looks like that. That's all it is. There's your methyl group. And then we go to 3, 4, 5, and I get up to 5, we get this. And you'll notice I've put it at the top instead of at the bottom. It doesn't matter, because that is actually a 3-dimensional molecule. That's not going to be up or down, it's going to be somewhere into the board. So the way we present that is simply the easiest way to understand, the way of drawing fewest things. Okay? That's much of the way that you name branched alkanes. Well, good luck to you, and I'll see you next time.